Kelvin, Tom, good to see you. Kelvin, I'll start with you. Obviously, we talked regularly about this, about the stand, and last time we spoke, you were really positive and optimistic in the autumn about the deal going through, and since then there's been a bit of a delay. But with the process pretty much done in the kind of most robust sense it could have been, awaiting kind of the meeting on the 21st and then the 28th, how confident are you feeling right now that this will go through, the land will become yours to develop, and the East Stand will begin the process to be completed as well?
Well, I'm chairman of a football club, so confidence is an interesting thing, really. So every Saturday morning, you kind of question what sort of confidence you have going into anything. So, but you know, the reality is it's not been our process. We've obviously been part of that process, and I think we've reached a point where we feel, and I think the council now feel, and anyone looking at this independently would feel, that everything has been done. Everything's been covered, everything's been checked. There's been, from our understanding, we've not seen all of this because it wouldn't have been right, but our understanding, there's been obviously valuation reports done independently. There's been auditors reports done independently. There's been councillors reports done, officers reports done independently. There's been legal opinion sought. There's been QC opinion sought, and everything is pointed in the direction that our deal is the route forward for the council to take. So now they're completing the process, hopefully we're discussing it full council, and then taking it to cabinet. So from our perspective, we're confident in that process, because you know the reality is the factual position is that every check's been done, and that's how the council have got to a point to produce the report to take to cabinet. They've done it all. The work's been put in, and for anyone now to speak against it, you're either, you know, the reality is, I would say you have some sort of agenda that's against the football club, or you think you know more than the independent valuations and independent reports that have been carried out. So and that's very, very difficult to quantify. That, you know, so from our perspective, you know, the council have indicated and said publicly that it's the most prudent option, and we would obviously agree. So from the football club perspective, we think it's a real positive step in getting the East Stand completed.
How frustrating has it been for you over the last couple of months? Because it's been a frustrating process ever since you took over the club in a way, and obviously things have been delayed and things have popped up, which means this conversation is probably being had further down the line than you would have liked when you originally took over. And when I last spoke to you, we were sat in the East Stand, there was a kind of particular spring in your step and excitement about the next process to be had. So then to have that latest delay, how much has your patience been kind of tested over the last couple of months?
Again, as a chairman of a football club, you know, your patience gets tested all the time, you know, but it's a process. I think the biggest thing and the most important thing, and the officers, especially at the council, have always stated this. They want to make sure it's robust, that there's no issues once it's decided, and after the fact there are no issues. And I think now they're at a position where they're protected. So they have all the information, they have all the checks done, and they have all the valuations in place. So, and maybe before there was some questions around the Red Book, or there was some questions about the needing an additional report, which they then got. And then the big thing was getting the QC opinion, because I think that was very important for the council and for the process. So of course it's frustrating. It's frustrating for everyone. And I'm the one that, you know, and the football club are the ones that take a lot of the heat in terms of this process. But it hasn't been, you know, there's certainly, and there's not been any provocation from our perspective. We've wanted to get it done from the start. So we're not gonna go back. You know, there's obviously been some stuff in the background that's not helped and has caused some of these delays for sure. But we're not going back over the past now. We are where we are. You know, we're hopefully less than 2 weeks away from a decision. We're less than a week away from a full discussion at full council. So we're not worried about what's happened so far. We're now concentrating our efforts on the future.
You mentioned there about the kind of the QC recommendation, which seems kind of so important in terms of backing your deal up. And we are talking under the basis of that because, of course, those meetings to really confirm this are to come. Were you ever worried at any point that this deal wouldn't go through over the last couple of weeks? We saw the documents released that another bidder came in, bid substantially more as well. That doesn't mean that much as you'll go into, I suppose, when we talk about the leases. But were you ever concerned when this process dragged on and other parties became interested in that land?
Yes and no. I think we always were very comfortable in the position the football club was in regards to the leases, and we're very pleased that the council did get that QC opinion, because it confirmed our thoughts that the leases were quite robust in themselves, and it would take quite a bit of a legal challenge to break those leases to enable. And then, you know, I know there was one other offer, and then someone did say to me the other day, but what happens if there's more offers? And I think Councillor Longley covers that off in the document, in terms of, he said, you know, it wouldn't really matter if there were other offers, because it would have the same challenges associated to it. So from that perspective, I think we were quite confident with our sort of evaluation of the position.
For those, this is probably the question I've had most from those who probably aren't aware of the kind of full details and the effect of lease, etc. From the outside, I've had the question: why would the council turn down a bid of over £2 million and accept a bid of £890,000? And it's all to do with the lease. Could you just kind of spell out what that means in real terms?
Yeah, listen, it's a complicated position, but so simply, there's part of the land that the other bid covered, which is there is a potential break clause in 2.5 years' time or 2 years' time in regards to remediation of the site. So there's a clause in the agreement which says that the site has to be remediated within that time. But there is a lot of grey area around what level of remediation is needed, if there is even remediation needed. And we would certainly challenge that those leases could be broken. And if those leases can't be broken, then the leases are 140, 135, 140 years left to run. So whilst it's okay saying that was worth more money, the reality is it couldn't easily be delivered on, and it potentially could never be delivered on. So whilst the council could have said, okay, it was over 2 million, we accept that, they would not have seen that 2 million for a minimum period of maybe over 2 years, and a maximum period of possibly never. And in between that, it could have cost the council a lot of money in legal fees in trying to fight the football club in terms of those leases. And I don't think that's a very good position for a council anyway, to be fighting the football club for a deal that benefits the football club. And you know, so I think they took the view, and backed up by QC opinion and legal opinion and etc. etc. I think they took the view that our offer was definitely deliverable, and you know, they could see a receipt within a very short period of time, within a matter of weeks, in terms of the once the paperwork's completed, etc.
Talking about the next step, and of course, again, we're talking on the 14th, so there's the meeting to come in a week's time, and the following week to really ratify all this. But talking kind of rationally and factually, you've got all the sign-offs and all the ticks and all the boxes that you would hope for. What is the next step when this deal gets accepted for the Cobblers fans?
Hopefully. So basically, we've got a document that we're putting out today, later today, which fans and everybody will be able to download off the website, and that should give a bit more information around the whole deal, and the support behind the deal, and the fan support and the stakeholder support and the community support as in general around this. We would hope that cabinet it's discussed at full council. Any questions get asked, then the cabinet approve it on the 28th, And at that point, it then goes into the legal process of signing contracts, etc. So, or agreeing contracts and signing contracts. So that would be 4 to 6 weeks, depends on, you know, lawyers, etc. And in that time, once you've got cabinet approval, you would then, you know, start finalising, you know, construction sort of details and when you could potentially start construction. And some of that conversation is going to be around, do you need to close the stand? Do you need to, you know, when's the best time to do that? When's reasonable for builders to get back on site, etc., etc. So all of that stuff is, you know, there's been some informal discussions and things in place, but it's then you would formalize those discussions during that period of contract negotiation, etc. So all of that stuff. There is one added complication around the ACV, which is the asset of community value, which I'm sure you'll ask about, which could potentially, if, you know, the trust hold the ACV and they have the ability to delay matters for probably up to 6 months. We would be very surprised if they did that once it was agreed at cabinet, but if they did, we would have to wait that period out and close on the transaction at the end of that period. But the truth is, we could do some work in the background and anyway, and in terms of, you know, getting plans in place and everything else and be ready to go. So hopefully it doesn't come to that, but there's a chance that could. So that's really what the next stages would be.
Just a final one on the ACV, which is talking about kind of the athletics track, aren't we, out the back? And your plan and the club's plan is to have parking and a fan zone in that area. Another side might say, hang on, this athletics track serves at the benefit. This needs to be kept and or refurbished and scratch, etc.
We understand partly what's been the ACV at the time. Because we were the leaseholder, we were asked about the ACV and when it was implemented, and we took a view that said it didn't overly matter because at the time we did say we didn't think it should have covered the athletics track because the athletics track wasn't part of the NTFC lease and was actually given up. That part of the lease was given up, actually interestingly, was given up, I believe, when the trust were on the board of the club. So they were actually part of giving up that that lease. I think that's correct. You'd have to dates wise, I might be wrong, but I think that's correct. And we would probably disagree that athletics track area is an historic community use area. I think it hasn't been used by anyone in the community for 8 years, something like that. The athletics club have got a new state-of-the-art facility up at Moulton. They've had for probably 6 years now. The football club in itself never really benefited from that site, and in fact, it was probably a bit more of a nuisance for the football club because they had to manage it at the time. And James tells me it's definitely never been beneficial to the football club. But in reality, our job is to look at the overall big picture, not this area of land. We've looked at the whole area of land, and we've not based our decision, oh, this is what the ACV covers. We've actually gone, okay, what's in the best interest of the football club? What does that look like? And we've actually said it benefit. So our plan that we've got in place, and nothing's set in stone, as it were, but our plan, once we've been able to purchase the land, we can look at that, and we can look at those lines and those etc. and make decisions. What's in the best interest of the football club? We're not going to bog ourselves down with what's in the ACV and what area of land is in the ACV, because if we make a decision that some of the land gets developed, then it'll only be in the interest of the football club anyway. So whether that's part of the ACV, look, we've always said, and we've said this to the council, and we've said this to the trust, that the stadium site is protected in our mind. That doesn't change. We would have had the option to pursue whether we wanted to purchase that. We could have said, oh, we'd like to do that, but we said no, we'd rather that stay as a lease to the council and make sure the council retains that as the landlord and the landowner. So none of this is about trying to get as much development land as possible, because we could have done that already. We could develop all the, the reality is, we could develop all the way up to the East Stand itself if we were that way inclined, but we're not. We've looked at the site as a whole and said, okay, what's in the best interest of the football club, and this is what we think is. And the truth is, those plans have been out there. The ACV's become a bit of a hot topic in the last few months, because I think people have realised that might be the only thing left to try and stop this. But the plans have been out there for however long, for months and months, and that's what's got the support of our fan base. The plans were out there when 97.67% of our fans voted that they supported the plans. So they've looked at it, they've interpreted it, they've understood it, and they've supported it. And once you see the document that we're going to publish online, you'll see the level of support within not only the fan base, but within the community, the stakeholders, the education establishments, the sports clubs, the corporately, community based. You'll see the level of support that this plan has. And again, if somebody said to me, oh, we can't do this because the club used to 8 years ago control an athletics track that sat disused for 8 years and no one's been on there, that would be a very surprising position, in our opinion. We've looked at this. The staff have looked at this. Tom's been involved in the process at the end from a fan representative, and you can ask him whatever, you can ask him what fans are telling him. We feel this is in the best interest of the football club, and the majority, the overwhelming majority, people also support that.
Well, you mentioned Tom and kind of fan representation, so that's probably a good point to bring him in. Tom, good to see you as well. For the majority of kind of these discussions over the last 5-6 years plus, and the East Stand, you've been a Cobblers fan from the outside, probably frustrated at some points, encouraged at some points. What's it been like for you now, sitting on the board and being involved with these kind of discussions?
Yeah, I mean, you've summed it up perfectly there. I sit in the West Stand, you look out to it, even during the championship season, you're thinking, let's get this stand finished. We want the facilities there. And, my role isn't about me. It's not about Tom Cliffe's opinion. It's about representing the vast majority of fans. We want the work that goes on in the community, that the East Stand will give us the kind of capability to host more events, to look at supporting individuals from our disability supporters, to have an area back where they can be raised and the covered area for them to have that facility back there is going to be a huge boost for the club. And I think from my point of view, I'm always in a position where I'm not going to please every single fan. Pretty much like a manager of a team, someone makes a sub, most people agree, some people don't. And from my point of view, the key bit for me has been, whenever I've asked a question, it's been answered. Now, from my point of view, that honesty, that transparency is something, you'll see in this document that's coming out. There's lots of questions there from lots of different people over lots of times, but some of those have built up when I've had a chat with a fan on the way to my seat, 5 to 3. Tom, what's happening with this? What's going to go on? Okay, I'll make a note of that because that's an important part. And I think from that point of view, when we've asked for meetings, whether it be I've asked to meet with James and Kelvin, or whether that's been to meet with local authorities or whoever it may be, those questions to me have been answered. And I take this role really, really seriously from a point of view that I want to be able to walk into Northampton Town Football Club as a fan, whoever it might be, in 20, 30 years' time, and not look back and go, you made the wrong decision there. So, yeah, I've read these reports. I've read Lambert Smith Hampton reports. I've read reports of this, reports of that. You listen to people's different opinions. And actually, when we put that information to the fans, they've come back in their vast majority to say, we support this plan and actually this is what we want to happen. And I think the bit for me that the document that is being released, there's lots of questions that I would have as a fan, or I've been asked to ask on their behalf, and there's answers there. And actually, when you're looking at it, there's views of this. Well, actually, look, it's covered in here. There's quite clear graphics of things. And, people will say, I'm saying this because Kelvin sat on the call. I'm not afraid to ask the difficult questions, but actually, when I ask them and I get the answers, these are the answers. This is where you're at. And you know, to come through. How was I going to, as a fan, can I question a QC's opinion on a legally binding report? I'm not in a position to do that. I've never tried to hide and be, you know, absolutely a master of everything that's to do with it. But you've looked at it, it's gone through this process, and trust me, there's times when it's frustrating and people are asking, and I get it on a daily basis. You know, I'm sure Kelvin does. I'm sure other members of the club do. What's it happening? Why aren't you doing this one? And sometimes it's difficult to go, you know what, we have to let the process run its course. We're at a point now, I've actively encouraged fans. I've reached out to people who I feel probably might disagree with the majority to see what their opinions are. And actually, when it comes to it, I think you'll see, you know, we're at a point in time where it proves this is what the vast majority of fans want to happen at this point in time. And hopefully, you know, we'll be having this conversation in a few weeks' time, being a lot further forward with it.
And you talked about kind of your role liaising with fans, and Kelvin referenced the poll for the plans that the club sent out, and an overwhelming majority of those that support it. And you talked about, mentioned earlier about kind of talking to fans on your way into the stadium and reaching out to supporters groups. How has that been going for you? Have you found them fairly receptive? What kind of reach of fans have you managed to get to?
So I think one of the things that I set out to say at the start was, you know, to almost make myself available to people, because I think as a representative on the board, like I say, this isn't about Tom Cliffe. It's about the job title in a sense, and making sure you represent people. And I'm not going to shy away from difficult conversations, because actually I'm there to listen to people. If I don't know the answers, I'll go and find them out, or I'll go and ask the people that do. And from people calling in, meeting people in town for drinks. Dan, who was the other candidate, I met with him very, very soon after to get opinions from a slightly different view maybe, but actually to look at how we work. We've got some activities coming up once a month where for supporters for whom I think we have to realise, you know, social media isn't there for everyone. People rely on different ways of communicating. So we've got some meetups at local businesses. And actually, from my point of view there, you know, we have conversations. I think, you know, people have perhaps said to me, why don't you say something online? Well, my view is I'm representing Northampton Town Football Club. It's not professional for me to get in a slanging match online. That's not who I am. That's not the kind of person I am. If we want to sit down and have a discussion, one of the first things I said when I was appointed in the role, I went to a meeting with Kelvin, James and Gareth was there as well. And I said, look, I'd really like to have a meeting with the Supporters Trust. When are you available? And it came back with 3 dates. We had that meeting. And actually, from that point of view, it's about, you know, from fans coming to me, whether it's email, having a chat over a cup of coffee, I'll have those views. And, you know, it's been really interesting from my point of view. I'm a football fan, first of all. I support the club. I want us to win. When things are winning, I don't tend to get quite as many comments. When things weren't, we had a little bit of a wobble. All of a sudden, my inbox tends to be a little bit fuller with different comments. But I think with some of that, I said at the start of when I had to put my name forward, you make decisions with your heart and your head. Anyone that sat near me in the ground know I speak a lot from the heart on a match day, and that will be my initial gut reaction. I want the club to do well. Actually, from this point of view, it's going away, looking at things. I personally, you know, might have a different point of view, but that's not for me to decide. It's to look at the balance. And as you said, you know, the survey was put out there, given that this is all the evidence we've got, you know, even from the council, their materials, here's everything, and here's it all in one place. Because I think one of the questions, it was hard to pull away, and a fan had sort of stopped and said, oh, I'm not even sure I'd been appointed at that point, but good luck. But, you know, it just all feels a bit complicated. There's terms I don't understand. And I think that's where this document today puts it into what I would call language that I'd want to hear. What does it mean for me as a supporter of this club? What does it mean to me as a local business owner, as a member of the community? What is actually going to happen? Because if not, it all ends up getting a little bit political. You go on Twitter and all of a sudden, if I've retweeted something, it's you know, all my views are my own or whatever. But actually, I'm representing the club, and the fact that my name's there, I want to be professional. And, you know, I'd say now, if people want to contact me to get in touch and discuss things, we'll always do that.
Well, it's good to hear from you, Tom, anyway. It's good to hear that you're stuck in all aspects. That's certainly good to hear. And just a final one back to Kelvin, just away from this, back onto the pitch. You had a busy January. How was that for you? With all this going on in the background, you have to negotiate a January transfer window. And how are you viewing things on the pitch for John Brady's side at the moment?
To be fair, with Tom getting stuck in like that, he might be playing centre midfield on Saturday. Listen, we've had a good week. I think we've come off the back of a good week. I think everyone saw how COVID affected us, and it took us a little bit to get around that. But I think what we, as you always try and do, you try and go into a January and you try and come out of it stronger. And I think that's what we did. As always in January or any window, you don't get every single target, but I think we've really added. I think January tends to be a loan window, and we've had tremendous success with loan signings before in the January window, especially in both promotion years. But I think we surprised a few people because of the Louis signing, and that's obviously Louis signing is a bit of a longer term signing, and I think he's shown that what he can do already. I think fans are excited about that, and the fact he's with us for the next 2.5 years is exciting for us, and it does show that there, again, it does show that there is a commitment there, and we will back, as we always have, we'll back managers to try and get success. So we've got I think we've played a lot of the top teams, and now we've got to make sure that we take care of business in the rest of our games. So I'm encouraged. I'm positive about going forward. I think defensively fantastic. We've all liked to have seen a few more goals go in, absolutely, but we are winning games, and that is the key in the end, because if we do find ourselves lucky enough at the end of the season to be promoted, it'll be a very harsh critic to say, oh, they got promoted, but they just didn't score enough goals. So I think we've addressed that with the players. Again, we've been very unlucky with some injuries. Idris is one especially. The lad gets injured in the game, before, and then still plays on the Tuesday night, and he's playing with a fractured jaw. So fair play to the lad, but that's just one of those things that happen. And but hopefully we'll see a bit more of him, a bit more Josh and a few of the other lads that can come back in and try and finish the season off strongly.